Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new build video with me, Sherman. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my build that I use for farming gear and mainly my gear farming build. I use this to farm any gear sets I need for anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. This build works for that really well. Now you don't have to go this far or this extreme. In fact, I have a better build for it. I just haven't gotten around to getting the kudas that I need to make all the glyphs, so I can change all the glyphs to my gear to fit this particular build type. And I really need to go in and adjust my build as well to make the gear to work a certain way. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. Now this is my tank build. I do use this as a tank also for dungeons and stuff as well. If I need to farm dungeons, I can solo a lot of dungeons on normal. That don't have any group mechanics to it. Like I can't farm Fungal Grotto 2 because you need more than one person for that. I can't farm any dungeons that have any kind of like group mechanics like that. But I have farmed a lot of the dungeons that are out there right now, solo farmed with this build, and it works really well. It's kind of like a mix between a DPS tank class build. You don't really need this much health, but I'm just going to go through and show you guys the build and let you guys decide from there. I do use it as my main tank as well. So the build is you don't have to be a wood elf, it doesn't matter. As long as you're a Templar, this build works really well. You can do this with a DK as well, but it doesn't work quite as good because the DK just doesn't get the deeps out, sorry. Doesn't get the DPS out as well as this. You can also power level people in Skyreach with this build as well. It would probably be better if I would have went with, like, say, a Nord or a Templar or an Orc with this build. Probably would have been better. So these are the stats. I have 64 into stamina. I do have 16 into magicka, 34 into health, or 34k health, sorry, 16k magicka, 34k health, 28k stamina. My weapon damage is 2589 unbuffed with a 39% crit. As you can see, I actually let my crit drop off, but that's fine because I get a lot of crit anyways. And it still plays on this. Now, I can switch the Mundus stone from Warrior to Thief and get more crit out of it, but with this build, the way I want to do it, I do need to change a few things to get that beneficial stuff from it. So, with the Templar, you do get a minor intellect, minor endurance, and minor fortitude up all the time if you keep repentance on your bar, and you're going to want to keep repentance. It's going to be kind of like your go-to heal if you're really hurting after a fight, or if you have a loss of stamina after a fight. And then major savagery, you're going to have this as well up all the time. Tri-stat food, because you do need the magicka in order for this build to work properly. So I'm going to go ahead and eat another piece before I take you guys in to see the gear. Now, you can tank with this build. You can tank normal dungeons, vet dungeons, hard mode dungeons, or, yeah, you can do that with any dungeon, but if you're going to do the Ruins of Mazatoon dungeon, my suggestion is get a sword and board specifically for that one when you're fighting Chuden. When you're not fighting Chuden, you can go back to two-handed. So, but we are running 5 pieces of Plague Doctors. This is where we get all of our health mostly. I am wearing 5 pieces of Gladiators, and the reason why is because of when the enemy's below 25% health, you add 1800 weapon damage to your light and heavy attacks. This does a lot of damage, especially with this kind of a build, because you focus mostly on light and heavy attacks because you use it for the cleave damage. You can go tri-stats. I would highly advise against it, and I would honestly go with Divine's Helm, Divine's Chest, Divine's Legs. This way you can get more out of your Mundus stone, and you'd only want those 3 pieces. The rest of them you would want reinforced or sturdy. Either one is fine. I go with reinforced because reinforced gives me the resistances that I need to survive a lot of this stuff. On the jewelry, I am wearing 3 pieces of Plague Doctor. All of it is healthy, of course, because you can't get any other way. But I do have 2 things of weapon damage on here, and then 1 magicka recovery. The 1 magicka recovery, you do need about an 800, 900 magicka recovery to make this build really effective, because you need that return of magicka, gradual magicka return, to keep your resources coming in. On the main bar, we are running a two-handed. It doesn't matter what two-handed you're running. You can even craft it. It doesn't matter. but you do need a gold two-handed with weapon damage on it, and it has to be defending. The same thing with the bow. The bow has to be defending, and it has to have, it's good with the Crusher enchantment. I'll just put it that way. But make sure it's defending and gold. The Crusher enchantment is something that I'm testing, and for now it's working, but it's not that great, to be honest. The time it lasts for is not long enough, and you'd have to constantly be using this. So I don't really would not advise it on the bow bar. On the bow, I would actually suggest going with magic damage with Magicka return. That way, when you switch to this and you drop your arrow, endless hail, you get that Magicka back. Now, there is some changes that you do need to do with the skills when it comes to certain things. So on to the skills here. On the main bar, we are running Brawler. This is your main defense, one of your main defensive skills. This is basically takes care of blocking damage, so you don't need to use a sword and board and block all the time. You can do this instead, but you do need a high weapon damage in order for this to work really well. Next up, we have Rally. Rally is going to be your main heal. That means whenever you activate this, it'll heal you for so much, and then the second time you activate it, it's going to heal you for more. And you're going to want to keep this going a lot. Like, just constantly keep Rally applied. If your health starts to taper off, just reapply Rally. It should boost your health back up pretty good. Next up, Blazing Shield. This is your main defense ability. This has to be up literally 90% of the time. If it's not up when you're in a fight, you're not really using the class or the design of the build the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be up all the time. Next up, we have Repentance. This is your main resource return of stamina. If you're having stamina issues in a dungeon, like clearing trash and stuff, this will help you draw in that stamina. It's really effective, I'll just put it that way, especially when solo playing or two-man playing or something like that. This plays on that really well. Next up, we have Evil Hunter. This is our main thing for that major savagery. You want this on your bar. It also plays off of the Fighters Guild. Down here, the Slayer, you get extra weapon damage for each Fighters Guild ability you have equipped. So you want to have this and Flawless Dawnbreaker. Flawless Dawnbreaker not only does a lot of damage, but it also gives you 5% more weapon damage, which also adds to these two, so you're getting 11% there. The reason you're a Templar is also because of the weapon damage they get off of Balanced Warrior. They get 6% extra weapon damage. So they get 6% plus this. That's a lot of weapon damage. In fact, it's almost equivalent to 20 weapon damage. I mean, not quite as 15 weapon damage, but it's almost the equivalent of what you can get from Rally itself. And it's really nice to have all that extra weapon damage on your character, especially for this. The other reason why you want Blazing Shield, though, is for this, for Piercing Spear. This increases your critical damage done and your damage against blocking targets by 10%. This is a really, really good one to have. You also get Spear Wall, which increases the amount of damage you can block from melee attacks by 15% while you have an Aedric Spear ability equipped. So even if you have Blazing Shield up, or on your bar, you can still block, and you can block a lot of damage. 25% damage blocking, because you get 10% just without. So you don't really need a sword or a shield, or sword and board for this. So going back into the skills, we are going to flip bars now. Now this is where things get a little different. There's a few floater spots in here that you can float, but we do use a bow on the back bar, and the reason why is for this ability here, Focused Aim. I didn't realize how well this worked with this build. It gives you the ability to apply Minor Fracture, and with that you get the extra, you get 2% more damage, but it's just that little bit more, which is really nice, and it hits for a lot of damage. Usually I can crit for about 24k, especially when the enemy's below 25% health. Next up, Endless Hail. You want to keep this up consistently, not all the time, but consistently, especially in boss encounters and stuff, so you get that extra damage in there. Next up, we do have Inner Beast. This is going to be your primary taunt. This means if you're out in the open world and you're soloing, somebody else comes into the fight, you do have the ability to taunt and keep the enemy on you, so it's not attacking them. And this is where the tanking side comes in, especially in solo play. Next up again, Repentance, for that extra, for the health, stamina, and magic recovery, but also for that way of returning your, health and stamina if you need it, kind of thing. Evil Hunter, and of course Dawnbreaker. Now the reason why I say this is kind of your floaty bar is because here you can actually float in Restoring Focus if you need the extra major ward and major resolve and major ward. If you need those, the 5,280 extra defenses, you can put this on your bar and put it where Endless Hell is. Because you don't need Endless Hell 100% of the time, but if you can get it off, get it out there, it's good. You can also replace Repentance on this bar with this, because you really don't need that stamina and health recovery on this bar, because you only flip here to apply this and the taunt, and that's it. And then you flip back over to the other bar. So this is a really good place to swap that out as well if you wanted to. So these are your two floaters here. The rest of them you have to have here. So just letting you know. Next up, we're going to go look at champion points. Now, champion points, yeah, there's a little bit of play in here that you can do with some of this, but most of it you can't really change it around if you want this build to work for you. And like I said, it will work with any race, and it will work with anything like that. It's just you want to make sure you have the right setup for the race trait like combo, or like if you're playing it like say an Argonian, you don't get any stamina bonus, so you're gonna want to like not give him as much health and put more into stamina. So you can swap out the Plague Doctor with like Eben if you wanted to, or you could swap it out for something else. If you're playing like a Nord, I would probably still stick with Plague Doctor and stick with what I have, but I would dump everything I can into stamina. I'd probably put all my gear with stamina glyphs on it, so I could go for closer to like a 34,000 stamina. And then, if I was playing an Orc, I would do the same thing. Even those Orcs get 6% max health and 6% stamina, I would put into put Plague Doctors on, or I'd put like Green Pact in its place, something like that gives me a lot of health. The reason why you want to be really tanky is so you can solo world bosses with little to no problem, and you don't have to rely on somebody else to be there for you. And that's the reason why you use the two-handed and you use Rally. That is your primary heal. And if you do have Restoring Focus, you do get 9% extra healing received, which is really good. It does stack with the heavy armor thing for rapid mending, which gives you 9% extra healing, so that's 18% extra healing received. On top of that, you're wearing Plague Doctors, which gives you 4%, so you get a lot of healing received, so you can boost a lot of heals like really fast and really powerful. So that's that. So let's go in here. We're going to take a look at the champion points. We have 23 into Ironclad, reducing the damage we take by 10% from direct damage. We have 20 into Spell Shield, giving us 1,900 extra things. You guys are going to notice I do this a lot with a lot of my characters. Pretty much just follow the same focus point on all my champion points. 43 in both Elemental and Hardy, Elemental Defender and Hardy, and that's to give me 10% damage reduction from poison, disease, and physical damage, including bleeds, flame frost, shock, and magic damage also reduced by 10%. I have 12 into Thick Skin. I'm going to be putting the rest of my points into Thick Skin to get it as close to 23 as possible, because I want that almost, or that close to 10% more damage reduction this will give me. Going over here, I have 23 into Bastion. This is to increase my damage shields. If you guys didn't notice, this one says 33%. It's normally 30%. But because I have that 10% in the Bastion, that increases by that amount. So it just gives me that 3% extra. Next up, I have 19 in Quick Recovery. This gives me another 5% healing received. This is where all that healing received really plays on this build, because all that healing received, every heal you cast on yourself gets that bonus healing received, and it keeps your health up there really well. 20 into Heavy Armor Focus gives you 1,900 extra physical resistance. So 20 into Warlord. I'm going to have 23 into this. That way I get 10% reduced cost and break free, because you do want that reduced cost. Trust me on this, because you do get stunned, knockdown, whatever, to where you have to break out of it a lot. So you will want to keep this up. Whenever you see an ability that could stun you and stuff, though, try to block it. Just use your two-handed or your bow and block the attack. That way you don't get stunned or knocked down, so you don't have to waste the resources to break free. Next up, Bashing Focus. You do want this because you will bash enemies every once in a while. Being a tanky type character, you want to be able to bash. This is a really good one to do that with. And you can also, with the reduced cost of 10%, really helps on saving you some resources. Next up, 43 in the Mooncalf, 43 in Arcanus, and 43 in Tenaxi. You don't really need the Mooncalf with this build, but I do it anyways because of that 10% extra stamina recovery. I am a high, or what else, so I do get 21%, so that's 31%, and then I get an extra 10% for my class, which is 41% stamina recovery, which is pretty good. I only have a 20% magicka recovery, so I need that extra magicka recovery on my jewelry. I have 43 in the Tenaxi, of course, to give me the increased stamina and magicka return from my heavy attacks. I only get stamina back because I only use a stamina weapon. So over here we have 15 in the Foul, gives us 15% healing reduction, or effectiveness to our healing reduction abilities, which is also, just so you guys can see this, it does the same thing. It gives me a percentage-based increase to this. So it's 15% of 30%. So I actually have a 4% increase to my major defile here, and it also is the same on my sword and board down here on reverberating bash. As you can see, that's what that percentage bonus does. It's really nice, kind of an effective one when you can get it higher. This one is 10% also, reduced the cost of block and Shadow Ward. You want 23 points. When using a two-handed, having that extra reduced cost really does help, but you don't block a lot of attacks. You only block the ones that knock you down or have a chance of knocking you back or knocking you up or something like that. This way you can do that. Anything that's going to stun you, lock you down, whatever, this is where this cost comes in. It helps having that extra reduced block. Moving on, I have 6 points in the Bless. We're going to go ahead and dump this last point in here. I'm going to put the remaining points I have into this. I'm probably not even going to get 5%, which is fine, but that extra healing done does help with Rally. So it's just a nice boost, just a small boost that does get applied with the Rally and all the healing received or healing taken that you get from everything else. So 35 in the Physical Weapon Expert to get 20% more damage from your light and heavy attacks. Like I said, this build focuses a lot on light and heavy attacks, mostly heavy attacks because you want that extra damage in there. I have 56 in the Master at Arms to increase my direct damage done by 20%. Remember, I am using a two-handed, so I get cleave damage. That initial hit I get on the main target gets 20% more damage, and then the enemies off to the side take 67% of the damage that I did to that main target. So it does a lot more damage as well. And if I buff myself, and I go in here and show you guys this, it stays the same, but I get extra damage on top of it because I buffed myself up. So they take even more damage from that. So when I do my light and heavy attacks, they take even more damage. Also, whenever you kill an enemy, you get 30% more stamina recovery, by the way, for 10 seconds. So you go up to about 1,000 something in stamina recovery, and so the more enemies you kill, the more stamina recovery you can keep this. You can keep this coming in all the time. Follow-up is also a really good one. Whenever you successfully your successful fully charged heavy attacks increase the damage of your next attack by 10%. It's a nice way to keep that extra damage, like you said, coming in and everything. That's why I use a two-handed for this build. So going on over here, I do want to show you guys this so you guys can see. I do have Reposit, which is a really nice way to block attacks and block damage back to the enemies. And when I do 5,000 something. Now, if I was at 32,000, by the way, stamina, and a little bit higher weapon damage, and I was running a sword and board, this would actually be closer to almost 9,000 damage back to the enemy. So just letting you guys know, this is a really, really important one. You're going to want to make sure you have this as a tank, because even if you're just playing by yourself or if you're playing with a group, anytime you block an attack, that means you have a 15% chance to redirect some of that damage back to them. And I don't know if any of you have ever hit somebody using a shield, but sometimes it can actually hurt. So it's kind of interesting. So over here we have 23 in the Thaumaturge, giving us 10% extra damage to our damage over time. 23 into Precise Strikes, which gives us 10% extra critical damage and critical healing, by the way, for that Rally. So that Rally can actually crit heal. The most I've ever crit healed myself with Rally, just to let you guys know, was 27k from one Rally. So it's pretty nice, and that's why you want to keep rally up all the time. So that way, if you need to recast it, you get that boost of healing from it. Next up, I have 16 into piercing. I only have 16 in here for that 1500 extra physical penetration. So I actually get almost like 3000 physical penetration on the enemy because of the bow and because of this. Next up, mighty. I have 43 points into increasing the damage of my physical, poison, and disease by 10%. This includes my bleeds are being increased by 10% and 10%, so 20% in total. So that's why I do use Brawler, is because it does a bleed over time, and it does help with that extra damage. And whenever I use Endless Hail, its damage is increased as well by 10% from Thaumaturge. So it's kind of nice to have that extra damage. This is also increased, the bleed is, by my weapon damage and my... let's go switch bars here, because you'll see over here it does 10k. But if I increase my weapon damage now it does over 11k. So it's a really, like I said, you want to keep rally up. You want to keep this applied as much as possible. Like every time you're in a dungeon or something, you have a lot of enemies, make sure you just hit them with Flawless Dawnbreaker, because most of them will die in a short second, because they're taking 11k damage. And it hits in a cone, and it hits all enemies. It doesn't hit 5, 6, 10, 12. It hits all of them in this cone. So it's a really good one to keep applied along with your Endless Hail, so that way you get the most DPS out of your character when playing solo or farming gear. This build's all for farming gear, and it makes it really easy to farm gear. Now, like I said, what I would suggest here on the gear is go Divines, Divines, Divines. Either go Thief or stick with the Warrior Stone, so you get that increased weapon damage and you get that increased stuff. As you can see, I have a 44% crit rate on my bow. I have a 39% here. You don't need a super high crit rate, to be honest. You need the weapon damage to get the more damage out of the build. But if you get the crit, if you go for the crit, you're going to lose weapon damage, which is fine. You can make it up with buffs, and just by buffing and keeping your stuff. And the reason why you also wear heavy armor is because of the benefit of heavy armor right here. You have Wraith, and anytime you take damage, you increase your weapon damage by 10 for 5 seconds, and you can stack it up to 20 times. So when you're doing a dungeon or something, you get hit by multiple enemies, that weapon damage gets increased by 200. I can push almost 4k weapon damage if I'm completely stacked with weapon damage. I'm wearing the set I said with the Divines and everything. And if I go Divines here, and Divines here, and I get that extra divine, stuff there. I can go Divines in everything, but I lose this by a big chunk, and I don't want to lose too much of this. I could probably lose a couple, I could probably lose about, say, 400 from this and 400 from this. So I could probably go Divines in the belt and Divines in the gloves, but I couldn't do it here or here, because I would lose too much. I mean, you're talking here, I'm going to lose 2k, or I'm going to lose a k in resistances here. I'm going to lose about a k in resistances. Here, I'm not going to lose that much. I think 200, and here I'm only going to lose about 300 or 400. So it's fine if I lose that much here. I get that extra in Divines, and that's what you really want, is that extra damage. Because, I mean, this is what Divines would look like. So I would get, 6.5% more effect of my Mundus stones. If I'm wearing 3 pieces of it in purple, or even gold, then I'm getting even more effect out of it. I've been trying to think of a build to send, or a character to send this stuff to, that I could use it on them and make them effective, but I haven't found a character that I want to put it on. It just seems to work really well with this character, because I do need the extra stamina, but only to a minor degree, or magicka. To a minor degree. In fact, I could probably get rid of all this this stuff and go stamina on everything, and get away with it, and actually get closer to a 33,000 here, and I would have my max health would drop to 31,000, or yeah, 31,000 without it. So I do have those options there, like I said, but it's all a matter of how you want to get the build across, like what you want to do with the build. And there is a lot more play with it and everything. So it's up to you to decide. But it's a really good build for farming gear is all. It's a really good build if you want to play like dungeons in normal and vet mode and hard mode and tank it and just clear it like as quickly as possible, because you do about anywhere between 15 and 23 to 26k DPS. It depends on how well you can keep the stuff applied. The more you keep it applied, the more DPS you can do. And you do have a lot of ways of doing DPS, by the way. So your Blazing Shield does back 52% of the damage to the enemies of what it absorbs. On top of that, you have this Burning Light, which also does damage back to the, has a 25% damage chance to do damage back to the enemies. When you deal damage with the Age of Spear ability, you have a 25% chance to deal an additional 4,153 damage, physical damage, because of that. And that does get increased also by Rally. Just so you can see, that's almost 4,500 now. And then on top of that, if you block an attack, you have a chance of redirecting damage back to the enemy. So you have all these ways of doing indirect damage, along with direct damage, along with more damage, because of the fact of the way the build works. You're constantly just applying damage, and that's why you have to have the high health, is for Blazing Shield to get the most effect out of it. That's why I suggest an Orc, a Nord, an Imperial, or even a High Elf or something, or Wood Elf or whatever. Something that's going to give you the greatest damage capabilities. It works on a Redguard, but only to a degree. The Redguard gets the greater stamina, stuff, but you don't need to worry about that because you do so much heavy attacks that you're recovering all those resources that you're using all the time. So I'm going to go over here and just to show you guys this build, we're going to go find a few enemies to take on. So I need to go. Oops, don't need that. I need the rally. Oh no, I'm stuck. So we're going to go over here. I'm just going to show you guys a little bit with this build. I could go like out into the someplace, like Giants, where I normally go and I test my builds, and I could grab every single one of them and just tank them all and take them all down, but it's just not worth it to do that when I can just go over here and look for some enemies. I see an eyeball I haven't found, which is kind of funny. Usually I have all these things uncovered already. So I believe there's some enemies over here, because there's like a pirate camp or a slave trader thing or something like that. But we can go in here and just grab their attention, and we'll just go ahead and do this. I'm not even using my other damage shield, I'm just using the one from my two-handed, because I don't need the other one to mitigate damage. I don't need Blazing Shield when I'm fighting these kind of enemies. I just need this one, because I can mitigate a ton of damage with this one, even, especially if I hit multiple enemies and everything. The reason I'm showing you guys this build, and I'm going into more detail with it, is because a lot of people will say that it's not a build that they would suggest using for tanking because it's so horrible and it's not good. It is a really good build even for tanking normal dungeons and stuff, vet dungeons, hard mode dungeons, because they're not super difficult. And if you're running Sword and Board against Chuden, you want to make sure that you have you have on the back bar, you have your one ability, this one. You want to make sure you have this for Chuden, because this you need against Chuden. He just does so much damage that you need to mitigate all that damage, and you want to keep it applied as much as possible. You can go bow too, which is kind of nice. I'm working on leveling my bow, so I've been out soloing with it. I've even soloed a few world bosses with just the bow, which is kind of funny because I didn't, know it was even like something I could do. So, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much the build right there in itself. It's a really good build to use, even for those who just play dungeons. If you want to just play dungeons with your friends or whatever, and you're not interested in raiding, you just enjoy the dungeon scene, you enjoy like playing with friends and stuff, this is a really good build for that too, because you get a lot of flexibility in group play and stuff like that. This is the same build that I use to do Dragonstar Arena 2-man on normal. We tried it on vet mode, and we did make it to we did try it on vet mode. We made it almost past the first boss and everything, but I just don't think we had the DPS at the time because I wasn't using the bow. If I was using the bow, I think we could have easily done it, like easily gotten through that. So what the heck? Got the rift going on, huh? Oh, he's over there at the boss. Yeah, you can hear that guy a mile away. It's pretty funny. He's at that tower there. But yeah, pretty much that's it for this build, guys. I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it's something that some of you might look at and say, hey, you know, if they can do this with this, maybe they can do it somewhere else. I will say this, it is raid capable. Normal raid and vet mode. It is both of those. It can work in both of those areas. Really good as an off tank more than a main tank. So, but yeah, that's it for this build. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you want to see more videos by me, hit the subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later. Bye.